I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we want a roll call.
Director Barsanti? Here. Director Burke? Here. Director Couch?
Here.
Director Mayo?
Present.
And President Corbett.
Here.
All are present.
Any public comment or written communications? There are no members of the public in the audience. Shelley, even though it's not here, I'm going to have you do double duty and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag for the closed session and then also for the general. So you could do that. Yeah.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I believe now we adjourn to the closed session. Is that okay? I'm going to call the meeting to order. Can we please take a roll call?
Director Barsanti? Here. Director Burke? Present. Director Couch?
Here.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
President Corbett.
Present.
Would you like a report out of closed session?
Yes.
There's nothing to report.
Okay. I'm glad you entered that momentous decision. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we're getting close to our occupancy limit here.
No, I was on
I volunteer to leave, Mr. Sheriff.
Any additions to the agenda?
President Corbett, I have no additions for the agenda.
Any board members? Audience? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Can we have roll call?
Director Barsanti? Here. Director Burke? Aye. Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
And President Corbett.
Aye. Motion passes. We are going to go to B1, which is conduct a public hearing regarding consideration of entering into an energy service design to build contract for McKinneyville CSD microgrid project and approve resolution 2019-25 declaring the wastewater facility microgrid design to build project and energy services design build contract compliant pursuant to government code 4217.10 et sec. And we have attached resolution 2019-25. Can we please have a staff report?
Thank you. So this is basically a procedure that's necessary. The contract that we're going to approve later on is an energy services contract from ESCO. And
Excuse me, Greg, don't forget to use the mic.
And it's necessary for the board to determine that this project is an energy services contract so that the terms of the contract can be approved as they stand, which allows a certain type of procurement and allows us to do the design build project the way it's shown in the bid packet. So anyway, to simplify things, the staff recommends that the board review the information provided, open the public hearing, after public input, close public hearing, and adopt resolution 2019-25 complying with ESCO requirements associated with contract execution with Ameresco Incorporated for the McKinleyville CSD microgrid project. And one of the requirements of this is that we did that we noticed this for 2 weeks in all the usual places where we notice our agenda. So the notice for this public hearing has been posted for 2 weeks prior to this meeting.
Okay. Any board comments or questions? Okay, anyone from the public wish to testify on this matter? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Any further staff comments?
No, thank you.
Board comments?
President Corbett, subject to any other comments, I'd like to move to adopt resolution 2019-25.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
President Corbett?
Yes. We come now to the place on the agenda for public comment and written communications. This is for any item that isn't already on the agenda, because if it's on the agenda, we'll call it up in the regular course of events. But does anyone have any written comments they will wish to make to the board at this point in time? And it should be something within our jurisdiction. And lastly, if it's really complex, we advise you to follow it up with a letter. Does anyone desire to make public comment? Okay, I'm going to.
On written communication, I think it'd be good to know that we do have written communication from SDRMA, Special District Risk Management Authority. It was a really good letter, and I think it's good for the public to know the efforts of the district and all of our employees and our staff that we had no paid workers' compensation claims in 2018 and 19. I think that's really important, and just wanted to point that out. So.
And we also had no claims on our liability
And
insurance.
the claims under liability insurance. So that's a really good deal. Thanks to everybody for that.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Do we have a motion? Second? I think we.
Public comment.
No, this was just written communication, public comment.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Thought you were giving me a Texas 2 separate.
So we're on to the consent calendar.
Okay, I'm going to have the public comment period closed. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Consider, does anyone want to take any matter off the consent calendar?
Yes, I would like to remove item D3 from the consent calendar, please.
I'm sorry, D3?
D3, yes.
Okay.
There are no failed DCBs. Everybody's rectified or gotten an extension, so there are no DCBs to put into the process.
Well, good news. Good news. Does anyone from the public want to take any item off the consent calendar? Any board member? Do I hear a motion for the consent calendar D1, 2, and 4?
Move to approve consent calendar D1, 2, and 4.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Can we have roll call?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke?
Aye.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
And President Corbett?
Yes.
I have a informational question on the D4, the declaration of the Ford Ranger as surplus. And you don't have to answer it tonight, but just for the board members, I'm interested to put a bid in on that truck, and I will be talking to the director, to the general manager, whether that's something I can do or not do. If that's something I can do, well, anyway.
Well, in a normal situation, yes, you'd be able to put in, anybody could put in a bid, but because we have a public entity who's committed to purchasing it, we gave them first.
Okay.
We gave them first dibs, and they purchased it for what we could.
Okay. All right.
Also, I
For higher than Blue Book.
Also, I'd advise getting a 1090 conflict ruling from council.
Yeah, okay, well, let's move the point then, so never mind.
Okay. E1, resolution honoring Mike Freeman on his retirement after 26 years of service at McKinneyville Community Services District.
Oh, sorry, did we address D3? Because we pulled it from the consent.
Yes, we pulled it so that it won't be,
It's not
So
relevant.
yes.
It went away.
Okay.
They all solved themselves.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing it up. I'm going to repeat, we're back to resolution honoring Mike Freeman. And we have attached resolution 2019-24. I'll call on the general manager.
Actually, Operations Director Henry is going to present this item.
Mike Freeman has retired from the district effective September 9th, 2019. We'd like to honor him for his dedication, commitment, and service to the district. In 1993, Mike was hired as a utility worker for the operations department. Mike then acquired the certifications required for the position. He later became the facilities inspector and treatment plant shift operator. As a shift operator, he was responsible for monthly and annual testing along with training multiple employees on treatment plant duties. Mike's facility inspector duties included inspecting, testing, and mapping of all new construction related to water, sewer, and streetlights. Mike has also dedicated his time with the CWEA, serving on the board, writing the newsletter, helping out with training classes, and assisting me with the game of golf tournament, although he does 99% of the work. I just hustle money. The district would like to thank Mike for the 26 years of dedicated service he provided for the McKinneyville Community Services District, and wish him well on his retirement. And I'll read the resolution. Resolution 2019-24, a resolution recognizing, honoring, and commending Mike Freeman for serving the McKinneyville Community Service District for 26 continuous years. Whereas Mike Freeman, having faithfully served 26 continuous years as an employee of the McKinneyville Community Service District from March 11, 1993 to September 9, 2019. Whereas throughout his years of service, Mike has demonstrated unwavering loyalty, dedication, and has earned his friendship and respect of his fellow employees. And whereas Mike lent his talents, experience, and leadership to the development and service of the district, having served a variety of positions, such as lead treatment plant operator, facility inspector, which contributed to the improvement and the quality of life within the community of McKinneyville. And whereas under Mike's direction and guidance, several district employees have served as operator in training and received a grade 1 wastewater treatment plant operator certification. And whereas under Mike's direction and guidance, as the facilities inspector, water and sewer facilities and new developments were installed to the district standards, and all mapping of these facilities is recorded. Now there be resolved upon retirement of Mike Freeman from the McKinneyville Community Service District, the Board of Directors wish to congratulate and express their deepest gratitude and respect for the contributions of many of the varied services to the district. Board of Directors and staff of MCSD would wish Mike well in his future efforts. Staff recommends that the Board approve Resolution 2019-24, honoring Mike Freeman's September 9, 2019 retirement after 26 years of continuous service in the McKinneyville Community Service District. Take public comment and participate in the celebration. That's a lot.
Are you done finally?
I'm out. Going home.
So I would just, so Mike started working for McKinneyville Community Services District about 3 years after I did. And at that point in time, it was a big deal because we finally had more utility people than we had supervisors. So it was like a point. But to be serious about this, two of Mike's biggest contributions to the district have been training operators in training and taking care of the facilities inspections. and verifying our as-built drawings so that we know where everything's at underground. And Mike leaves a significant legacy with McKinleyville Community Services District, not only in the professionalism that he displayed, but the fact that he's helped so many people. I'd ask but he probably doesn't remember because he slept since then. About how many guys he's actually helped get their wastewater certification. I'd say eight people over his time working, and that's huge because of how important that is for the state, not only for McKinleyville, but for the state to have qualified wastewater management operators. And then also the level of detail that Mike insisted upon when it came to our as-built drawings, all of our, because once something's buried underground, you can't find it. But because of Mike's diligence, it makes it a lot easier to find stuff that's buried in the ground. Just making sure that the contractors that always want to comply with our rules and standard specifications do what they're supposed to do. So anyway, I want to thank Mike very much for that.
Any board comments? Well, I want to go the public first. Okay, I'll invite him up first. Can you step forward and say a few words?
There you go.
Push the button? Or is it?
It's on.
Well, it's been a good 26 and some odd months, 26 years and some odd months. It's been a good time. There's very little turnover in the district, and that's because it's a great place to work. And that's all because of you guys. About all I got.
Mike, you really only retired so you can grow here.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna do the middle here.
Not everybody can do it.
I think I can pull it off.
I think you can. Yeah, I should start off and congratulate you. We've known each other for a long time, and it's been really good having you in town, and then to be on the services district and help us mature. Not just grow, but mature into such a, not just important, but kind of like a relative of people here in the community. It's a good group, and I really appreciate your part of that. It's been nice knowing you. Sorry to see you go away. How soon are you leaving? No,
I'll be around.
Anyway, thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Other board members? Well, I just want to thank you. That's, first of all, a long time to put up with us. So you must be a tolerant man. And I just want to say that having the level of dedication from employees like you really makes the district shine, because a lot of places they're just turnstile training people, and they get good and they go, and it's really important you got good and you stayed, and it really helps us, and I really appreciate the efforts you made over the years.
Thank you. We got a great group of guys right here behind me, too.
Okay.
And over there.
Right, I noticed you have a beautiful cake got rolled in. But I think what we can do is go over, take some pictures, then we'll open it up for public comment, and then we'll serve cake to everybody, if that's fine with you.
I think you still have a couple of board members that want to.
I'm sorry, pardon the
There's
resolution.
a couple of board members that want to make.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good.
I just wanted to follow up and say thank you and congratulations. And it sounds like you have been a detail-oriented person, and it's wonderful to have people like that, not only on staff, but training others. So hopefully your standard has been set among the rest of the staff. So it is hard to see you go. I mean, it's in here and spoken about your relationships here with the district, and I'm just curious, what are you going to do in your retirement?
Well, I gotta get my health problems taken care of first. I just had back surgery in July, and everything else is falling apart too, so.
Oh dear. Well, I'm glad you have the time to devote to your health.
Yeah,
Good luck with that.
thank you.
Okay, I think we really should have the motion for the resolution.
I
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to thank you for all the facilities inspection, because that's something I've seen for years and years, how good McKinley Mills facilities, been inspected. Been jealous of, to be honest. Thank you very much.
We hear that a lot.
And I will move, actually, that we approve resolution 2019-24.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone from staff or the board want to? Okay, I'm sort of gonna do the photos, then open it up to the public. I assume no one from the public's gonna object to the motion. So it's a little irregular, but I think it goes a little smoother that way. So can we have the roll call?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke?
Aye.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Okay.
President Corcoran?
Yes. Okay, so let's go get a picture and we'll open it up to the public and then they can come up, have cake and say nice things about you.
Just come over at this angle.
You're gonna have to come over here for your photo.
Come on, get closer together, guys. Here we go.
Do we have a resolution or a plaque there to hold up? Here we go. There we go.
Something to do with my hands. Let's go.
I keep telling people that I'm gonna get a job, so I was up at 4 o'clock this morning, just walking in circles, so you can get out there.
That's really nice. Look at that.
You know, it always.
Yeah, but we got to close the deal on it.
It was a mistake cake and we just got it.
So while James is cutting cake, can we call for public comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was intending to do. Okay, probably this would be a great time to come to the microphone and say some good words. We're very busy with cake cutting and can't multitask.
It always impresses me how people that sniff.
You have to say something, Kate.
I'm gonna say something. Well, I'm one of the 7-8 people that Mike trained to be a wastewater treatment operator.
So it wasn't all successful.
Well, there was you had one failure. And what are you gonna do? But and then, got to work a lot with him during that time. We've been working together the last 17 years, which has been a good 17 for sure. And then when I got promoted to lead person, I got a little more insight into what it is like to work with Mike. And I don't have a lot to add that hasn't already been said either by James or Greg. Other than I just want to thank you for being a good friend, a good man.
One thing the younger guys don't know about Mike is on the occasional Fridays at operations director, which even fixed breakfast. If Ed Mosley was going to be gone, next thing you know, there's hash browns and eggs and bacon. And that was one of the special balances that he has.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Whenever the general manager, the operations director are gone, or if they're both gone, then they really throw a big show.
He's still coming back and doing it. You're just not there to see.
Okay, the mic's open.
That's really good, James. Piece of cake.
Good morning, Mike. One thing that I'm not looking for sympathy here, but I got picked on a lot.
What do you mean you got picked up?
Kyle picks him on a lot of people. Go ahead.
Not necessarily undeserving, but I got, and still do sometimes. But one thing, when I was always the center of getting picked on, Mike would always chime in and say, good morning, Kyle. And that was good to me for a long time, because I appreciate that. Just getting acknowledged that something other than getting picked on. Thanks, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
It's my cheat day. I wound up getting diabetes from this. You said bring it to me, Dad.
So I worked with Mike for 15 years side by side, and at times I didn't think he did that much, but since he's left, it's taken more than a couple guys to fill his shoes. I mean, the stuff that he does is it's facility inspection stuff too, and he made it look easy, and it's really not that easy. I mean, it is. But no, it's been a pleasure working with you. Like, you got me a lot, actually. Man, your computer smart is great.
Good morning, Mike.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me, Mike put the district's first website together. He was our first webmaster back in the old days, a long time ago.
Oh, come on, how are you?
But he has some time. He has a good time.
Does anyone else want to come up to the mic? The mic's still open.
Hey, wait a minute, you've talked once before. Coming up for case. Okay.
It's help and serve.
You're the mic's brother.
Can we have somebody retire next meeting? This cake's pretty good.
That might
We
be
can see that it happens if we need to.
Come on, you guys, everybody. Cake's for everybody. Come up and have a piece of cake. We got plenty of it.
You gotta deliver it.
Oh, you're delivering? Oh, okay. Good. Very nice.
That's so sweet. Thanks for that gigantic piece of cake, James. When I lay there tonight, I can't sleep. I'll remember you.
Want another one? What'd you say? You want another one?
Yeah.
Bigger one?
No, I'll need
I've been climbing up and down the ladder, up and down the ladder. Doing fill-in
You're right.
You got to go back for a time.
Yeah. Everybody at 80 a cake, it goes fast.
It kind of gets to me, come back and cut, and then screw it up. Yeah, it's weird. I enjoy doing it, just working. I like working. I was gonna say we could get that one. You don't have a drink, don't do it. You're pretty good at it.
What's your trial?
Same way.
Really good, isn't it?
Oh, they make really good cakes there. So did Ray's Bakery. Ray's had the best bakery. I actually dropped a cake that I got from Ray's. And I took a bag of chocolate.
I like it nice, yeah. I like their carrot cake. Carrot's one of my favorites. Then I had a friend, they made a combination carrot German chocolate cake. Oh my God. Oh my God. Coconut on top of the frosting. Oh my God.
You want to call for one more round of
What I
applause
like to do, I make an apple pie.
before we move on?
And put a lot of chocolate in it. It doesn't take her, get her, just break them up, and then spread them all.
Looks like it.
Apple pie.
I think I want to go over to his house.
I'm pretty good.
That sounds like it.
I made enchiladas last night.
Thank you.
Now, you may not like this, but it was head cheese enchiladas. Homemade head cheese.
That cheese enchiladas.
It's pretty good.
The last time I had cheese was the last time I butchered the house.
Well, then when actually I didn't book this all. I went to a barbecue and they had 2 pigs, and I always look at eggs. You know, a lot of people I had to eat. So one, a cat he brought home, the other one they ate at the barbecue. So I put that thing down. and made
All
it.
she had was a
How you doing, April?
resolution, so I'll
Job.
talk to her.
Are you getting, yeah, you seem like you just jumped right in here and took it right over.
Because she's got such a great teacher.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item of business. Probably next time we ought to have a plaque. Someone's worked for 26 years would I think be nice. So if we could just have that.
We got it. We got it.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Is already plaqued out?
We're preparing to do a lunch with them.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we usually do the ceremonial resolution, but it slipped through the cracks this time. But he will get presented with us with the resolution.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that he got
in,
one.
in a frame.
Okay.
Oh, good, yeah. Thank you.
Approve regular board meeting dates, E2.
At the August board meeting, we presented a proposed board meeting schedule, and we took some comments on some of the dates specifically for January and July. We're bringing this back now for your approval, and staff recommendation is to review the information provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve the 2020 regular board meeting calendar.
Okay. Does anyone have any changes, problems? Can I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the 2020 regular board meeting calendar.
Is there a second?
A second?
Is there anyone from the audience want to comment? Okay. We'll take it back to the board and request a roll call vote.
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke? Yes. Director Couch?
Aye.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
President Corbett?
Yes. The next item is to review and discuss the McKinneyville Skateboard Park quarterly project status update presented by the Humboldt Shark Park Collective, HSC, Leslie Frisbee, Recreation Director, and Charlie Caldwell, HSC.
I'm gonna let Charlie take this one.
Okay, well, come on up, Charlie.
Thanks, Leslie. Charlie Cowboy, I live here with you, all that good stuff. I missed the mid-year quarterly, so I wanted to make sure we got this quarterly out. A few things have changed since I did this in September. Not necessarily fine, but we've actually done 2 more grants. Both those grants are for sending youth to camp. 2 camps. So I'm hoping this year to actually be able to sponsor local kids in our camps locally, and be able to send our more advanced skaters off to. We were actually able to send 8 skaters off, 4 of them out of McKinleyville to Mount Good, and 4 of our high school students out of Eureka down to out of Bishop, the Element Skate camp down there. So using grants, we're actually getting grants. We're actually being able to help some of our local youth already, even though we don't have our skate parks built. And hopefully we'll be getting people coming from out of the area to our skate parks so we can build. That's the eventual goal. You can see current funding is down. That is because we've invested in our insurance, which went up this year because Eureka required a $2 million per event, which increased our insurance quite a bit. But next year, I'm actually looking for grants that will cover insurance too, because hopefully I get to retire soon. Still working on that. I'm at work again. And the last time I was here, I said I was retiring on the 10th. It was my last day of work. Well, that didn't happen. It's gone and passed, and I'm at work every day again. So, as far as the grants go, Prop 68 grant is in, the Tony Hawk grant is in. We should hear from the Tony Hawk grant sometime this month, about the middle of the month usually when we hear that. I know the Prop 68 is in December sometime, so kind of excited about hearing about those. And I'm going to, as far as, I'll just keep it with that. The final design is in 2 different engineers' hands for cost estimate if anything needs to be done to them. So our local engineer is looking at it right now. He's already looked at it and said stamping is not a problem. Everything's there that he needs to stamp it. But to go to permitting, we're going to need to cover the AED, handicap, all of that stuff around the skate park, which is kind of part of the Prop 68 if you look at the design of the Prop 68 of the whole area. So we're going to see if we can get away with submitting just that larger overlay of what we're trying to do, and if something happens where we don't get to Prop 68, where we're just going after the permitting for the skate park, we'll make some adjustments to that cover the AED for the skate park piece of it. So, because I'd really like to get into permitting, because the Tony Hawk grant, if we don't get it this time, comes back up in December, and if we have the permit in place, then there's a much better chance for us of getting that grant, which is a seed grant for the other grants that I'm working on right now. I've actually got a list of 10 different grants. Once the Tony Hawk grant goes in, that are a combination of arts and youth grants and construction grants. So that's what it said. Anyway, so there's 10 that I've got set already to start writing. Just trying to stay on track, trying to stay on our time frame. Budgeting, we spent the $5,000 that we were given through grants and matching funds for the Girl Scout camp, and we've got a signed contract with our design team right now, and as we get through these last little stages with the engineers, we'll be paying them the $21,000 here really soon, so you'll see that drop off of our budget. And that's what I have right now. Any questions?
Mary, board member Burke.
Well, thanks for being here, Charlie, and thank you for coming diligently to keep us updated. I really appreciate it. It's always a feel-good moment to hear about the skate park. I do want to check on the length of time on the entry agreement. Was there a time period that was designated in that entry agreement? And I say this just to be sure that know.
So with the extension of the 6 months, because we had to go to design, based on the decision that we made, we said we would put that 6-month extension. We have till May of 2020 to break ground and start cutting. So I know what that means.
Good.
And if something happens, because if we don't get Prop 68, we go after the next Prop 68, which would be a year out, then we will probably come back to the board, because we're so far along right now and say, you know, we're doing this other $3 million grant, this is where we're at. I'm hoping we have the funds for the skate park, but I'd like to see the rest of the park get upgraded too, so, you know, we'll follow through with that too, so.
Great. I just wanted to make sure there's no barriers there. Really excited to see progress.
And I think that if we get to, if for whatever reason something happens and we're not able to meet the intent of the original because of the progress we've made, I couldn't see staff not recommending that we renew the agreement or come up with another amicable alternative to the agreement the way it's written now.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I just want to say thanks, Charlie. I appreciate also, you know, your commitment some time back about keeping us, you know, up to speed all the time, and I really appreciate you doing that.
And I think it's really inspirational.
And that's even secondary to your consistency out there with these kids, man. So I appreciate it.
So I was going to say one thing. I really appreciate how you guys bring your employees out when they're having significant things happen in their careers, like retirements and anniversaries, out in the public where people recognize that. So, you know, I'm sitting at 40 years with PG&E. I'm trying to retire. Yeah, I haven't even really gotten an official lunch or anything. So what I'm saying is here's this huge company, when somebody, but as a service district, what you guys do for your employees is very nice, and I really appreciate it. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
And I'm like,
All right.
Good night.
Sure, we got 10 more items.
Take some cake.
Yeah, there's some cake too.
Yeah, take some.
Our next item is E4, review reserve policy for capacity fees. Attachments 1 to 16, capacity fee study, appendix A.
That would be me. Staff recommends that the board review the proposed reserve policy changes for capacity fees, discuss, take public comment, and provide direction to staff on any parameters they wish to see incorporated into the final policy. Our current policy for capacity fees simply says the fund consists of monies received through development impact fees and is utilized to offset new development-related capital improvements as outlined by the district's capital improvement plan. Capacity fees are development-driven, as are the costs incurred, therefore no minimum or maximum levels will be established. In addition to having no target criteria, no minimum or maximum levels for this legally restricted reserve, there's also no policy guidelines outlining the proper use of the capacity fees, no stated parameters for regular reviews or updates of what, the rate structures that we collect for that. So staff proposes the following general policy guidelines for the capacity fees reserve. Capacity fees will be held separately from working capital in an appropriate investment account and interest. Capacity fees received and utilized will be reported annually as part of the district's financial reporting process. Withdrawals from the capacity fees reserve will require the same level of documentation and the same signatures as checks drawn to cover ordinary expenditures in the district's bank account. When large capital projects are undertaken, the percentage increase in overall system capacity will be estimated. That percentage will be withdrawn from the capacity fees reserve to cover the cost of construction. If the project is funded with debt, that percentage may be withdrawn from capacity fees collected each year to cover the indebtedness incurred until the debt is retired or until the appropriate percentage of capacity growth is covered. Having said that in the abstract, for example, the recently completed wastewater management facility was received into fixed assets at a value of about $15,800,000. And it was estimated to increase the overall system capacity for this community by about 30%, which is about $4,738,000 and some change. The current balance in the wastewater capacity fees is $1,560,836. This balance on all wastewater capacity fees collected in subsequent years would be set against that $4.7 million of expanded capacity until that's paid full, basically. Is that clear enough? The other suggestions that we have are that capacity fees must be reviewed by a qualified consultant every 5 years to ensure that adequate fees are being collected to cover the cost of new or expanded infrastructure. And the last thing I did was attach the appendix from the 2016 capacity fee study. And what it shows is the approximate percent of capacity increase for the water fund, the wastewater fund, and joint capital projects. So that was clear as mud, and I'm willing to entertain questions.
Okay, any questions, comments? Well, go ahead, Mary.
I just want to check my understanding. Okay, so using the example, so we spent $15.8 million to build a new wastewater management facility, and then we can calculate a portion of that that is related to the increased capacity that it provides. Then we've been collecting capacity fees from development projects. So we have a bank account over here that's got $1.5 million in it. We can take that $1.5 million and put it towards paying down the debt on the $15.8 million.
But no more than
The capacity
4.7 million
calculation.
because that's the 30% that is increased. And when we look at, like, for the wastewater plant, the capacity increase is fairly easy to, well, not easy to calculate, but there's clear calculation for it. We'll be able to handle, this much more flow through the plant than we could in the old plant. So there's a way to actually look at that and say, okay, this is going to increase our capacity by, and I can be corrected by people who are actually expert at this, but that's my understanding of it.
They all left.
Yeah, you used to be one of them. You're as expert as they are.
Yeah, if I can humor the board for a moment. So I think that, legally, we're bound by Proposition 218. We can't charge our ratepayers to increase capacity. Just like we couldn't charge capacity fees to pay for our day-to-day operations. So what it means is that, and I think it's a little bit more enlightening if you turn to page 60 and you see, we'll take, for instance, the 4.5 million gallon water tank, and then you go across there and you see the total cost is 5.2 million, and then the source is MCSD draft CIP, and the capacity method is 2, and then the percentage attributed to growth is 50%. So that means that when we build the wastewater, when we build that tank up there on Cochrane Road, that only half of the cost of that project will be footed by the rates, and the other half will be footed by the capacity fees. And you can go down the list and see that there's an attribution to everything, like the water tank upgrades, like painting the tanks. You see that has 0 attributed to growth. So basically that has to be completely, the bill for that has to be footed by the rates and not by capacity fees. So what we're proposing is that we calculate out, and honestly the cash flow is going to come, this is a business, and our cash flow is going to come from our rates. So what's going to end up happening is the capacity fees are going to end up owing the rates money. So what I'm proposing is that by the time the life of that piece of infrastructure is reached the end of its useful life, that the capacity fees for that will have been collected, and then they'll be paid back. And basically all we're doing is we're going to be sequestering, as we are now, the capacity fees, and then being able to show the board on an annual basis that we've increased the capacity to the system by this much, and we're going to spend this much on the CIP projects, and the rest is going to come out of the rate fees. And the way it's been working now is we do a capacity fee study every 5 years, which remains that we're compliant with Proposition 218, and also the board's wish to make incremental changes and not do huge changes. So that means that every 5 years we have to go back and get an engineer to stamp engineers and create these rates. So basically, but we want that memorialized. We want the board to have that policy so that the next general manager doesn't say, or that the oncoming board says, well, it's really uncomfortable. We don't want to raise rates because we're afraid we're not going to get reelected. So we're just gonna kick the can down the road. We want to put policies in place related to this policy that the public can come back and say, oh no, wait a minute, you have a policy that says you're going to do this, and the general manager will then be responsible for making sure that happens. Any other questions? I know I kind of went around.
I have a question. We are pushing these numbers from our cash flow, build out operational needs. At the level of the consumer, the developer consumer, are our fees in line?
Well, compared to what they were 10 years ago, they're exorbitantly higher. But 10 years ago, the district was charging $150 for water capacity and $1,400 for sewer capacity. So I think that if you compare what other municipalities are charging, I think we're in the median.
Okay, well that's good. That's all I wanted to make sure is we checked market reality if you were a developer. That's all.
Right.
Mary.
Yeah, we were just ridiculously undercharging for that. Gave us quite a bit of not just heartburn, but functional issues. So anyway, I'm very happy to see us, and thank you for that explanation, Greg, to see us definitely memorialize this as a policy. And we've been working on that for a while, so I appreciate it.
Mary.
Just for my clarity, can you describe the brief overview of all the ways capacity fees are collected, or the activities that result in capacity fees?
Sure. So the process for capacity fees goes something like this. If somebody comes in and they've not gone to the county to get a building permit, and they just have decided that they want to buy capacity into the system, they fill out an application. We assess the capacity fees. The capacity fees are completely related to the size of the meter that they get and the amount of drain fixture units. And so with the size of the meter that they're going to buy has a maximum potential for the amount of water that can flow through that meter. That then dictates the amount of impact that has on the system, and they pay a proportional charge for buying that maximum capacity into the system. And basically the same thing with the sewer, but only it's done on drain fixture units, and they basically are purchasing. They're holding in perpetuity a maximum capacity the maximum potential for them to be able to discharge in sewer.
So like new construction or remodel
Yeah, and then the other one is if say that a developer buys a lot or develops and builds the streets and has a bunch of lots, as part of the process for getting a building permit, the county processes that building permit, and then that building permit comes through McKinleyville Community Services District to verify that there's actual capacity for that. And in the process of that, the developer then has to pay. The process is exactly the same. You're purchasing in perpetuity a maximum potential of that water meter and those drain fixture units in system. So you're reserving the maximum potential in the system, and it works the exact same way, other than the fact that before they can get their building permit, they have to come in and they got to lay down the capacity fee money for that. But it's basically the same process. Everything's the same. It's just the mode of how the reason for them having to do it above and beyond buying into the system.
And that hasn't really changed over time. It's still the process.
The process is almost identical to the way it used to be. We did change. We did change while Norm was the general manager. We changed the capacity, the way that we calculated water capacity fees, because those were done on fixture units too, for what they were for water. And in the we've done it. It's much easier to charge by the size of the meter than it is in the sewer. Always has been drain fixture units related to an equivalent residential unit. So at this point in time, if you build to kind of put it in context, if you come to the district and you say I'm going to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, that's about 24 drain fixture units. That's a single family dwelling for our 2.74 people that live per house here in McKinleyville. And that's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $11,000 for the water and the sewer capacity, which is pretty good when you get down south. It can be 30, 40, 60, 80, $100,000.
And that may increase for us in years too.
Well, so the way it works is during the process, at the beginning of the 5-year process, we truth what's going on, and things have changed. Our realities changed. The projects have changed. The amount of capacity that we need for the future, those things all changed a little bit. And so we basically, at the beginning of that 218 process, we go through and we run a model, and then that model tells us our capacity fees need to be this much, and they get truthed up. They might not be much higher than they were, or they might be a little bit higher than, and then every year after that, for the 5 years that the 218 process is, we use a construction inflator, and they're increased by that percentage of that. There's an index that we use that we raise them for inflation. So they build every year, and then like I said, at the end of that 5-year period of time, we go back and we do another study. We take the information that we know that's different than the old information, and we basically redo the capacity fee study, and then bring it back. We do a protest. We do protest vote with the community, much like we do the water fees and sewer fees, and we have another 5 years.
Yeah, 30. Well, I was just trying to do the math in my head. Over 35 years ago, maybe 9. I bought 12, and the price was right, and it was 15 years before I built those out, but in that time, the price had increased a little bit, not terribly, like,
Yeah, not as much as they should have.
Right, and so it was, and people do that, and a lot of people did it, and I'm sure people still do certainly see it today, but it was good, and we just sat on them for all that time until we started building those out.
To staff, there's no provision for us to adopt the policy tonight. Is that deliberate, or?
That's very deliberate. What we're more after tonight is just kind of acknowledgement. An acknowledgement from the board that we're on the right path.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I like having the wall boards. I think that's important. Starting off with no minimum amount and starting off with no maximum amount, and Some of the other items were pretty loose, and that's a reflection, we're going through the reserve fund the first time. So I think that's all good. And then, like I said, as long as it checks out that it's within market prices and it's driven by our needs, it's a great thing.
Well, the board has the opportunity every 5 years to go through the process and verify that we're on the right track.
Right. Board Member Burke.
I just want to express that I'm really glad that we're doing this. To hear that it's not well defined and that we're going to define it is really welcome news. And in terms of process-wise, I'm kind of curious how we got here. Maybe you could just quickly, how did we get to where we're reviewing the reserve policies, and how many are we going to be reviewing?
I'll let Colleen take that one. Be frank.
The original reserve policy was voted in by the board the year before I was hired. And we're going to be looking at those. It's part of the policy review that happens annually for the board. So once a year it shows up in the board packet in all its gory detail, or in this case, lack of detail. But all of those categories we're going to be reviewing and looking at. Because a lot of them don't have any overarching policy guidelines about where the funds need or should be held, what level of document, who gets to withdraw and under what conditions, and what the process is for that. It's not stated anywhere. I don't know where the original policy came from. It might have come from the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, which is an international body. But things that are built by international bodies tend to be kind of one size fits all. And we've gotten to the point where that's not helpful. We need to have, we have enough reserves at this point where we need to have things better defined. We need some, we need some investment policy guidelines. We need some parameters, general parameters, and especially, and one of the good things about this is that when we know when we can withdraw from a reserve, that will free up capital to fund underfunded reserves, like pension and OPEB. Because whenever, but again, we have to have those parameters be quite clear. I don't want this is not a good area to be murky. And I'm using kind of the general guidelines that we have about, who has signature authority and under what condition, how do we want the funds held. So we'll be bringing those kinds of things back to the board, and all the different funds that are currently in the reserve policy. We're just taking them one at a time, and although the first one we had 3 of them because they were small and easy to deal with. The capacity fees is a little tougher. I think next time.
Yeah, what are we going to do next?
I'll tell you.
So while Colleen's coming up with that, so another thing the reserve policy that the board has been operating under, that it's been having staff operate under, is probably a template that's used by many smaller agencies. And I think that we've become much more sophisticated than that, and it doesn't allow the board to have a very sound oversight over staff with the way it was written. There's just leaves way too much to interpretation, and also Colleen and I started realizing that with the way we operate the district now, as opposed to the way we operated the district, say 10 years ago, we had the potential that we would end up with these gigantic reserves, and there's no way that you would have allowed us to keep on coming back and asking for rate increases that would have allowed us to fund, because it was such a one-size-fits-all sort of way to calculate out how much reserves you had to keep. Also, all about cash flow. And as long as the district maintains its health, we don't have to keep $20 or $30 million in reserves, you know, and so it'll just, what Colleen and I hope to bring back to you when it's all finished is something that's very functional, it's cash flow friendly, and it allows the board to conduct the right amount of oversight over staff and allows the public to be able to make sure that the board is doing their job.
It's defensible.
Yeah, and defensible.
Yeah, it's something that'll be very clear so that you can put this, you know, show this to the public and say, look, this is what we're holding, this is why we're holding it, this is how we calculated it, this is where it's sitting. We're not just squatting on a huge pile of cash for fun. You know, because that freaks people out.
Yeah.
And the next one I'm going to bring in is the repair and replacement reserve. So that'll be one. Some of these may take more than a month. We may have a couple cycles depending on how much work I need to do on them, but that will be the next one.
And I think another very important part of having a very solid reserve policy is it allows us, when we hire a consultant to do our rate studies and our capacity fee studies, they have some pretty solid parameters within which to operate. They know what our operating expenses are. They know what our capital improvement plans are. They know what our very specific needs are related to reserves, and then they just put all that in the model, and then it's up to the board to, you know, how you want to collect that. Do you want to collect it on the front end? Do you want to collect it on the back end, or do you want to smooth it out and collect it through the whole 5-year period of time?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say-
Any further comments or questions?
I was just going to say, I'm really happy with this. Sounds good. I remember back when we raised the capacity fees when Norm was here, and it was kind of contentious back then. So developers didn't care for it a whole lot. But one of the things, if you go back in the history of the district, when the district was established, we had a bond that, you know, if you owned a piece of property, you had to pay off the bond that was the initial cost for the district. So having the capacity fees is kind of an equity thing for the people who had to pay off that bond. You know, why should they subsidize the development in the future? So this isn't, you know, we got into a compromise on the rates, and it's a good thing because it, you know, gives something back to the district from the development that goes on.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, E5, consider approval of general manager recruitment materials. I'll call on Board Member Mayo, then Board Member Burke, and then our general manager. Board Member Mayo, report from the committee.
We had a meeting and went over the relevant part, issues that we needed to. It was a good meeting, and I think we're well in agreement on how to proceed, and generally that was it. I think we're all going to be pretty happy with what when the procedures are formulated, completely formulated. I think everybody's going to be pretty happy with what we've come up with. So that's about all for me. And Marion, please expound on it.
Just to say, when Director Mayo and I came to the table with Greg and April and Kirsten, this was largely already done. So the staff has done a great job of both researching other similar jobs and formatting this in a really nice way that fits in with the flavor of how general manager jobs are advertised. And so their research and their efforts, it didn't take too much to get it to where it is, but that staff has done a great job pulling it together. So we gave comment in the meeting, and then staff has edited, and that's what you have in front of you.
Okay, General Manager Orsini.
I'm going to defer to April on this, since her and Kirsten did the vast majority of the work on this.
So you have in front of you the board brochure, or the brochure for, that we'd like to be able to advertise with. And also there is the revised general manager job description. There was a couple things in our committee meeting that were discussed possibly changing, and so we have provided a tracked changes version for you on that. And then there's also just a draft hiring timeline that is presented just from, it's kind of a down and dirty timeline, just what to kind of expect next. So staff recommendation is that the board review the provided information, discuss, take public comment, and take the following action. Approve the draft general manager recruitment brochure and authorize staff to advertise the position. Approve the revised general manager job description, and review the draft hiring timeline and give feedback.
So do I have a motion to approve?
I think we've got a...
I was just
Oh,
going
that's
to say,
right,
on the timeline, there's a 2019 that needs to be thinking about.
Where's that at?
February 20, about 2/3 of the way down.
Oh, yeah.
And David, I'm going to try and move out a little bit. You're almost totally blocked off, and so I don't see you.
I'll wait.
Let's just the draft timeline.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
I had one language suggestion for the board to consider. On the right below, this is McKinleyville on the right-hand side. It says McKinleyville enjoys a high degree of civic engagement. Residents care deeply about their community and actively work to create opportunities to tell their story. God, it's so small, but I was thinking just their varied stories, because, well, it's more than one story that we have here. They're varied stories. But, that's really in the weeds. I'll acknowledge that.
We've had 2 language suggestions. Does staff accept those or not?
Sure.
Okay.
Under the goals and priorities, are these verbatim out of our strategic plan? Or is there a little bit of room on how they're worded?
I believe they're verbatim, but I honestly would have to go back and check.
They're supposed to be
It
verbatim.
should be verbatim.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring it up is because it sounds like it's a goal or priority to we have so many partnerships within the community, right? I don't want it to sound like we're starting from scratch building. So I was thinking continuing to build partnerships within the community, just like continuing to prepare the district for a major natural disaster. And the last one, there just, I think, should be some sort of a verb or action in there, like proactively address water quality issues faced by most communities in California. So continue to build partnerships. And the final bullet, proactively address water quality issues. comment?
Additional language changes were suggested. Are those approved by staff or not?
Yes.
Okay. In April, you have all this down? Good for you. Any other board comments or questions? Anyone from the audience want to make comments? Okay, then I would like to call back to the board, get a motion to, on the floor, and second.
Should all three of them?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
Go for a home run.
Yeah.
Bases loaded.
Okay, just want to make sure you do it right.
Well, there's only action on number one.
Number one, okay,
You can go first, staff.
all right. I make a motion that we approve the draft general manager recruitment brochure and authorize staff to advertise the position.
Second.
Any further discussion? And then with the changes that were
Yeah,
suggested.
with the changes that were
Okay?
suggested.
Then can we have a roll call when you're ready?
Director Barsanti.
Yes.
Director Burke.
Yes.
Director Couch.
Yes.
Director Mayo.
Yes.
President Corbett.
Yes, we actually all even agreed on her.
Yeah. And so now we need to have a motion and a second and a vote on approving the general manager job description.
I make a motion that we approve the revised general manager's job description.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So much fun. Call the roll again.
Director Barsanti.
Yes.
Director Burke.
Yes.
Director Couch.
Yes.
Director Mayo.
Yes.
President Corbett.
Yes.
The third one? I make a motion.
No, the third one is just informational. We'll bring back, so we're in the process now of, this is just kind of to let you know what we kind of had in mind, and we've reviewed this with the committee. And what we're proposing is that we'll bring back a Gantt chart so that we can more for staff to be able to track better how we're doing on the project and make sure we're keeping on track, because this can't go over, because I really don't know if I want to work past July 17th, so we really need to stay on track with this. So I thought that a Gantt chart would be a better way for us to be able to track how we're doing that, and we'll bring that back. And in the coming months, we'll be talking to. We'll need to decide on interview questions, how the interviews are set up, how we review the applications, and then at that point in time, we'll probably end up having applications, and then the board's going to have to review applications. Hopefully, you guys are going to have to review a lot of applications. So, and at that point in time, if we get 20 or 30 applications, the board might determine that they don't want to review all 20 or 30 jobs.
I don't want to review 20 applications.
So then at that point in time, we would probably ask the board for direction related to having staff and the two committee members review the vast majority of the applications, or they might ask me to go through and shortlist them or something. But anyway, those are all questions that will need to be answered at a later date.
Well, I wanted to thank you as general manager for taking a leadership position on this. I think it's really helpful and gives definition and a little professionalism to the board effort. I also want to thank Board Member Mayo and Board Member Burke for keeping it moving and coming out with a product we can all be proud of. So thank you.
Can I add in there, I think it's April and Kirsten that are staff doing the work on this. So thank you in addition.
It's okay. I can compliment April too. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Approve resolution 20, it's E6. Approve resolution 2019-26, awarding a contract to Maresco Inc. as a successful bidder related to bids received for the wastewater management facility microgrid design build project It involves approving Resolution 2019-26, the contract between MCSD and Ameresco, a final bid scoring sheet, and tabulated bid results. Can we please call on staff? And given this is a bid, there's a lot of legal requirements, I would really recommend a per staff board motion.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that the motion be per staff recommendation. Per staff recommendation. But anyway, I'll read. So the staff recommends that the board review the information provided, take public comment, and consider improving Resolution 2019-26, which is Attachment 1, awarding the contract to Ameresco Incorporated. Attachment 2, as a successful bidder related to bids received for the wastewater management facility microgrid design build project. At the beginning, I would like to point out to the board that District Council worked very hard with our design consultants to make sure that the contract fits the template and the requirements in the state of California related to a design build project. So they've all been vetted out, and our general counsel approved that. So what I'd like to do is part of this, things that are going to be really important in what are in the resolution are the fact that we went out to bid on this project. We verified through the funding agency that a design build project done like this, as I explained with the ESCO, the energy services contract was acceptable, and we would be able to get refund. We would be able to get the grant funds and get the loans, and so this also fits within the funding requirements of the state revolving fund energy efficiency grant. And so we received 2 bids. One was from Stronghold Engineering, and it was a bid of $4.635,444 million, and a bid from Ameresco Incorporated that was $1.957520 million. And we reviewed both bid packets, and they were both responsive and responsible, and they were both determined to be qualified for this job. In the process, we had a committee. We assigned a committee that was their job was to go through the selection criteria and score the bids and determine who the most qualified bidder was. And people that were involved in that were three individuals from GHD, Jordan King, who was responsible for the vast majority of the bid packet, and Patrick Kaspari, who was the project manager for this, and Tristan Tuzu, who is their specialist in doing these ESCO projects. And Mike Avicoli, who works for RCEA, who's very familiar with ESCO projects, and works and is very has given us a lot of pro bono assistance through this process. So it's great having RCEA here to be able to do this, and then of course James Henry and myself. And as you can see, we scored out of a potential of 100 points. Stronghold Engineering scored 71 points, and Ameresco scored 93 points out of 100. And if you look at the attachments, the final scoring sheet is attachment 3, which is the final scoring, which is on page 518, and it basically goes through and shows the determination. And then also the tabulated bid results on page 519. And so there were a couple of alternate ad items that were related to the project, and we took bid ad alternate number 2 was added into, and that's why the base bids and the amount of money that we're asking the board to approve on this are a little bit different, because there was an alternate bid item that was added to the total cost of the project.
Just curious, can you describe how you score, what's project implementation? What are you looking at? Their schedule or?
So project implementation is related to the way the contractor, design team and contractor propose to do the project. So it could be anything from where they're saying that they're going to, during implementation, they're going to use a certain rack system. So that I don't give away too much about how the process was done, related to being unfair with letting the public know how it was decided. Say the rack. Say both contractors designated the same rack systems identical, which is odd that they did that. But if one of them would have proposed a rack system that would have been improbable, or something that would have cost us a lot more cost down the road, it would have showed up in the ESCO thing that we looked at earlier. But it would also have been said, well, that's not, as far as implementation goes, we don't like that. Or if they would have chosen a inverter that might not have been the best inverter in the world, or they might have picked that they decided that they wanted to build the solar project somewhere that it was impossible for them to build, which is nice that they all stay within the parameters that they were given, because they were only allowed certain areas to build. So that's kind of what implementation is.
Thanks.
I have a question. I see here that there's a 10% contingency fee.
Yes.
And so if they go over the contingency fee, what's the procedure for them to?
Okay. In the resolution, basically the board will be allowing me to sign change orders, to allow change orders, and to also implement the things that I'm going to need to implement, related like the notice of award and the notice to proceed and things like that. So we don't have to come back to the board for every single one of those. So by allowing us a 10% contingency, that allows me to process change orders. As long as the change orders, and that's also in here, that as long as the change orders don't go beyond the intent of the project, like if they come to us with a change order, I say they have to buy everybody, and this doesn't happen in the United States, but it happens in a lot of other countries. Midway through the project, I tell them that the contractor's got to buy the board and all the upper management staff all Cadillacs.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that's not my question.
Dennis wants to pick.
Let's add that. Make sure that's in.
So
My
Put that
question.
in.
Oh, okay. My question isn't what the contingency is, but my question is, what if it goes over the 2.166?
Well, then I'll have to come back to the board and we'll have to do a bunch of
Geez,
Yeah, okay.
that's where you negotiate. You buy one Cadillac, we can each use it 1 week, and then the next week, see?
I'm sorry, that was terrible. And I got started.
Oh my God,
I got the mad
Please tell my apologies.
Okay, so if it goes over the amount with the 10% contingency, you will come to the board.
At that point in time, I would have to come back to the board. I would very much have my hat in my hand, because we've
Okay.
never had a project, so it doesn't have over.
All right, thanks.
Mary.
I'm glad we have a contractor. They've even done a project locally at Blue Lake Rancheria, right? Listed as one of their projects. So that's great. They have local experience. And can you briefly outline what this project is? A bunch of solar panels and the, digital controls needed to operate it, and it's operating our wastewater treatment facility. What else am I missing?
So one of the most important parts, and it's going to be one of the toughest things that we're going to have to deal with, and that's the location of where the solar panels are going to go. Right now, and that was another thing that during implementation, their proposal was much more realistic where they were going to put the solar panels, the angle that they were going to put the solar panels, and those were the things that made that's what scored them so high on implementation related to the other firm. But so a big thing is going to be deciding where the solar panels are going to go, whether they're going to go where they've said or whether they're going to go in one of the other places. Because I'm sure that we're going to have to test the waters with the public related to the fact that this is going to take up almost the whole dog park. So anyway, that'll be important. Of some of the other things that are going to be very important for this project is going to be the integration between the grid, our existing generator, the batteries, and the photovoltaic. That's probably going to be the most critical part of the project, with the location of the solar panels being the second most important part of the project. Did I answer your question?
Yes. The tie-in is critical because why?
So the tie-in, so the interconnection between, because we have 3 different sources of power, and AC alternating current, it operates. It's not like direct current where you can, as long as you don't put negative to positive without a load in between them, you'll blow stuff up with AC because of the waves, because of the hertz, the kilohertz that they run at, the 60 hertz that they run at. Those waves have to be synchronized, or they have to be separated from each other. So that's going to be very critical that that when the generator comes on, it doesn't blow up because it's at the wrong cycle related to the batteries or to the solar panels, or so, and vice versa. So those are very critical things that interconnection is going to be a huge consideration.
And back to your previous point, that's going to be a really challenging topic to have with the public who uses the dog park. Do you see there's going to be a win-win solution for the location of this project?
Well, part of the consideration, another reason why we were so enamored with Amoresco's proposal is because part of the cost of the project is building a half-acre of fenced-in dog park.
I think that might also be a challenging conversation for the users of the dog park.
Yeah, and at this point in time, I think it might be, but I tell you what, the people that don't have dogs and go to that park will probably, if they have to, will show up in droves to support that. Because people do not obey the leash laws in the park, and with a fence in a defined area, it will help. And you know it. And if it turns out that it isn't, the board can put their money where their mouth is and go with the next more expensive alternative, and that's floating them in a pond or moving them out where the trees are at now, which is going to be even more significantly expensive. So, if the board, it's just, one thing the board needs to understand is that property belongs to the wastewater management facility. So we're on the margin about letting people dictate us not using it for recreation as opposed to what the money is, the funds that purchased it, which were sewer funds. So
yeah, I'm just acknowledging that there's a long-standing existing use with a lot of people who are really it's a very important place to them
It
throughout their lives.
absolutely is. I very much understand that, but things change, and I bet you those same people would probably be very much in favor of solar energy to offset our load and our costs if they didn't want to walk their dogs in the same place.
Yeah, that's why I was just hoping that there was an easy win-win.
I don't know that I think that it's gonna be a tough one. And it might be that the board is not comfortable with that, and then we go for for the second alternative, which is floating them. It's gonna
When we
cost
get to
money.
that dialogue, I mean, we're having it now, but I don't think it was apparent, to the public. That would come at what stage of the project?
Very shortly.
Yeah.
Let's get them under contract first.
Yeah. So, can I, trade-offs, things come with trade-offs, everything you do. From the day I came on this board, I've been pushing for solar project. We have one over here that the libraries and county screws out of. And every time we have an election, all I hear is what a sorry son of a bitch I am, conservative, no account, SOB. And we've worked our butts off to try to do something good for this community and to do something cutting edge and that is important to the community and the environment and everything else. So you can't win always. Tough. Things have trade-offs. Anybody that doesn't know that was going on, any of the dog people that doesn't know that was going on or isn't a possibility are asleep. Just quite frankly, they're asleep. And that's fine. A lot of the public is asleep. Every time we do anything, every time we do anything, I don't care how much we publicize it, there'll be 5 or 6 people in here screaming at us, well, I just heard about this. So anyway, that's just the way it is.
I recognize the fact that this has the potential to be contentious, and the proposal is written that they were to include effort for public scoping meetings related to the location of the solar panels.
And so I like this process. I like the fact that they took into consideration to try to mitigate and have a little dog park too. I think, so.
It used to be a baseball field before it was a dog park.
Yeah.
So.
At one time, not too long ago, it was going to be low-cost housing for coastal access. I don't know whether y'all remember that or not, but that was prior to us putting our sewer plant in there. So there are trade-offs.
Okay, I want us to sum up, focus on the solar project.
Well, I'm all in support of this, and I don't know where we're going from here with it, but I'm tickled with it. For my 20%.
Anybody make a motion yet?
I don't believe we have a motion yet.
Move and then public comment?
We can,
Either?
Chair would love to entertain a motion.
Well, I will move per staff recommendation that we approve resolution 2019-26.
Second.
Roll call?
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything?
Oh.
No, okay.
Anyone from the public?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
President Corbett?
Yes. Well, congratulations. I don't even know how many years.
Would you call George?
Pardon?
He knows.
George, but we voted,
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about it last
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay. Reports. Active committee reports. Recreational Advisory Committee. Couch. Mayo.
Let's see, we met, more interest in our school road property for BMX, and I think that's about other than Leslie's report. It's enough.
Any questions? Okay. Area Fund, John Colstead Burke.
Did not meet.
Redwood Region Economic Development Commission, Mayo Barsante.
Been real busy on stuff I can't disclose. Loan committee stuff. We're getting ready to do a bunch of loans and some foreclosures and et cetera. I've been busy with that, but it's proprietary until it's done. So I can't, nothing to report beyond that.
Senior Center Board Liaison.
Well, it was an interesting month. I had some, we had a situation with marijuana coming into the center that I had to get some help with that, and the director said there will be no marijuana talk anymore. So that they were gonna have it for the health center. They're gonna, so we had that situation, but we resolved it. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Leslie, for that. Appreciate it. And there was a couple things that I talked to Leslie about. I think they want the schedule and then also the security camera, and that pretty much was it. What we talked about the senior center.
Audit. Okay, nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Employee negotiations.
Nothing to report.
Water Task Force, Burke.
Did not meet.
Ad hoc, no drugs and toxics down the drain, Burke.
Did not meet.
Pennville Municipal Advisory Committee, Burke, Mayo.
We met twice. We had a special meeting mid-month to discuss some options for forming a task force to draft the town center ordinance. Had a long discussion and came up with an alternative, and then came to our regular MCMAC meeting at the end of the month. And just want to also mention that we have a really great report routine going with the sheriff comes in. And then this month we also had the fire department, a fire chief came in, and we really had a nice long dialogue with her. And then we got down to discussing the formation of a task force for the drafting the town center ordinance, and made the decision to use the MCMAC itself as an appointed body to do that ordinance drafting procedure. So the work that we had done as an invitation will still go out as an invitation to participate, and the meetings will be done as public meetings with the MCMAC as the committee working with the county to draft the town center ordinance language. And you were not in attendance, is that right, Greg?
No, I wasn't. I was there for the special meeting, but I was in Anaheim for the regular meeting. So
I'm just trying to remember if we had another presentation.
yeah, did they do the transit needs?
Oh, right, thank you. So we also had Marcella Clem come from HCOG to hear from the community on unmet transit needs. And so there was dialogue at the board and from the community on unmet transit needs. And there are a number of those meetings that HCOG is convening around the county. I think they're required only to do one, and they're doing something like 11 meetings to really try to understand what the unmet transit needs are.
How often, we do that every 3 years or every 5 years, every 3 years or something?
3 or 5, yeah. I'm sorry, I can't remember that.
Just trying to remember, it's not a big deal.
One suggestion that may or may not apply. The original McKinneyville Planning Committee had a roster, and it represented a lot of interests of the community. And you may want to follow that a little bit to ensure that it's a representative body, and certainly the supervisors approved that style of representation in the past. Anyway, just a thought. Any other questions or comments?
No, I had one question about the ordinance development. Well, are you going to have extra McMac meetings? Is that how that's going to go? Okay.
Yeah, I think it hasn't been decided, but it sounded like it was going to be probably every other week for about 4 months. Yeah. So it's going to be a big effort. It was acknowledged that there have been a number of opportunities for public input and recorded public input on, the community's desires for the town center with the community plan and with MOC events and the pop-up museum recording a lot of input. So we're starting in a good place, and there will be opportunities for more input, and then drilling down into really learning what the constraints are on the property, and then trying to find a feasible, make sure that the ordinance is dealing with a feasible set of design criteria. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Cornerstone Committee.
Did not meet.
Groundwater Sustainability Committee, that met. I was in Anaheim and was unable, I don't know whether I got in contact with you. I'm not sure I did.
I didn't hear from you, but I attended the meeting.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, tell me.
So let's see. Department of Water Resources attended the meeting, and the whole stakeholder group for the county attended. And to be clear, I hadn't had communication with you. I attended in my role as CalTrout employee, but I can report out on it. So let's see. So the county, put forth an alternative to forming a groundwater sustainability agency, but that proposal was rejected, and so the county will be forming an agency, and it looks like we'll be applying for about a $2 million grant to gather the data and come up with the sort of the criteria for groundwater use and management. And so I'd say the meeting started, with a lot of pushback towards having to do this, but the group, it's a pretty broad group of stakeholders, and they came to realize, well, this is an unfunded state mandate, and we're going to have to do it. So let's do it. Let's learn from it, and I think it felt. And so the Department of Water Resources, as well as the people in the room, felt like they were going to be able, to articulate the needs of the basin and the impact or lack of impact of pumping from groundwater on surface water. But it just needed to be demonstrated, and we didn't have, the county didn't have 10 years demonstrating that there were management objectives that they were following. So it'll all get laid out.
And I don't expect you to pull all this off, Mary. I just was curious. That has to do with the overdraft and like many things in the precautionary principle. When you don't have any data, you're kind of in the worst position of all. It's pretty understood that there's no overdraft issue whatsoever.
That was brought up, and agreed that there was no data.
And so, what's the time frame or mechanism that we're going to proof that? And you can't answer that right now. I realize nobody can.
I think it's probably about a 10-year period that monitoring will have to go on.
Self-professed prophecies, government creating more government. Anyway, and then
Is our priority rating there still middle, medium?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
And Hank had proposed a couple of alternatives of using the Board of Supervisors as an agency or using a stakeholder group, and it was brought up, this is highly technical, so whichever route we go, there should be a lot of good technical
For
advisory.
And I think Mr.
members.
Corbett might agree with me on this, but from my perspective in this, we don't want the board of supervisors doing this at all. So,
Okay.
John, would you, how do you feel about that statement?
Well,
I don't want to put you on the spot. But
I don't
what the heck you
care
think?
whether there's representation of the supervisor. I do want technical people in the committee because the state's going to respond to
Well,
technical.
I just find, and I think you'll agree to this, board of supervisors generally are overwhelmed with what they're doing already. This is a very kind of time-consuming deal.
Yes, I'm fully aware of that,
Yeah.
but sometimes
Anyway.
they like to join in, and I think it's ill-advised to cut them out if that
Well,
should
I don't
happen.
think-
But I
Hank-
favor setting it up as a technical
Hank
committee.
is running the show. So
What?
Hank is running the show,
Yeah.
so the county's not cut out of it at all.
Well,
Anyway.
I just like to be very careful.
Yeah. I don't know why. Why did you want to be careful? Just say what you think, for crying out
Because I
loud.
deal with people like Board Member Mayo all the time. That's why. Probably not careful enough. Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Local, Humboldt Local Agency Foundation Commission, Couch.
Well, let's see, we met and I think the commission approved Blue Lake Sphere of Influence, and then we talked again about water to the park in southern Humboldt, and they were gonna get like a $6,000 bill from LAFCO, so they managed to cut that in half for them, so I was like, can't the park just have one?
What was the billing before, Dave? I'm curious.
Well, if you go through LAFCO, you have to pay the LAFCO fees.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was,
Yeah.
I didn't realize how expensive it is. They gave me a price for it. And the other thing that comes with the LAFCO is Deborah Lake is a representative from Southern Humboldt for a fire district who's been on LAFCO, and she's also a representative on Cal LAFCO, and she's planning to retire from that. So they asked me if I would step into her position. So it's kind of Northern California special district seat. So they're going to run me for that. So I'm going down to Sacramento at the end of this month to see about that. And it won't have a financial impact on the district because they actually pay the cost for us to go to meetings.
Cool.
Congratulations.
We'll see.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay.
Remember, they can't have none of our damn water.
Support Services Department.
The only thing I'd like to add to the written report is that since I already have a regular note in here about the capacity fees, there's already a certain level of reporting on that going on, and so I'd be able to, this would be a good place to just kind of update it regularly and for the interest of the board.
Thank you for coming.
Right.
And other than that, I have nothing further to add.
Any questions or comments? Okay, Operations Department, James Henry.
Thank you for that report.
I was going to, the general manager would like me to discuss a homeless issue. We've reported in the past, we have the homeless who go and leave us a large area of cleanup to do. Our most recent, which hopefully today, is where our Fernwood, it's the Magnolia Open Space Zone. Event of that last Thursday. Well, basically, monthly we go and inspect those sites and we walk through them. And with the request of the general manager, he wanted us to increase our show there so that we didn't give him time to build camp. So we were doing every 2 weeks. Thursday, one of the employees went there and noticed a tent, and a large tent was set up, and asked them to leave, and then notified me about it. And then Friday morning I went in there, found the camper still there. He was there with his girlfriend. I told him to pick up everything, including his garbage, and vacate the property. And he had told me the day to get it done, and that I was going to have the sheriff come in the next day. He agreed, but did nothing. So that was a Friday. Of course, I didn't go in on a Saturday. And he called my bluff. Monday, I went in there and found the tent and a lot of garbage and stolen material. I went to the sheriff, reported what I had seen. They had spoke to the Parks Department and left them and said that they went in there on Tuesday morning and didn't find anybody. So we went in today, and the tent was gone, but they left all the garbage behind. So I had staff start moving garbage, which they did and completed. The cost for this cleanup was $68 for the dump fee, $527 for labor, $122.5 for equipment, totaling, and this is a minor cleanup. It took three guys 3.5 hours. This one cleanup total cost was $717.
And how many times have we had to go into that area in, say, the last 6 months?
We went in there probably, we cleaned up in there probably 4 times. One of the times we used our Saturday swap crew, and when they were trying to save costs on using them. And I'll add that there were 55 needles in this location today.
65.
55 needles.
So, and if anybody's been watching on McKinleyville Community Watch, Eric and his crew went in there last Saturday, and they cleaned up a bunch too. And the problem with this is that the St. John's own that area between our property and Central Avenue. It's right across the street from the empty lot that's next to Humboldt Sanitation.
Across from Andy's cabin.
It's across from it's across from Andy's. No.
Well, it's just down, it's halfway in between.
Yeah, it's closer to Andy's than Humboldt
Yeah,
Sanitation.
it's kind of halfway in between.
Yeah, it's halfway in between. It's it's across the street from that empty lot from Humboldt Sanitation. But anyway, from there all the way back up to Fernwood doesn't belong to us, or roughly to Fernwood doesn't belong to us. And then the area from there along the creek behind the high school up to where the houses start is an open space maintenance zone that we own, and it's become a huge issue. When those open space maintenance zones were assessed, never in our wildest dreams did we think that we'd be spending almost the whole assessment on every 3 or 4 months to be able to take care of that. So it doesn't really leave us the funds that we need for trimming the trees and taking care of the detention basins and stuff. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do about that. But it's in the I don't know, the egg before the chicken or cart before the horse thing on this. I guess it would be egg before the chicken. But that area has a lot of very nicely developed trails. And that area used to be utilized by the community members a lot, and the kids used to do shortcuts. There's bridges across the creek so the kids can cut through there to get to school and things like that. And now, because of the situation in there with the homeless, nobody goes back there anymore. So it's just that much more isolated and causing that much more issues. So it's like snowballing now, and it's getting bad. And so I think that and a lot of it's sensitive habitat because it's wetlands and things like that. So the ability for us to go in there and clear the understory so that there's nowhere for them to be able to hide in there is an alternative that seems to work very good. Also, figuring out a way to get people to go back in and get it clean and get people to go back in there and start using those trails again would help out a lot. But I think until the St. John's or their estate or whatever's going on back there, put their foot down and start forcing them out of that area to the east of us. I think it's always, and it's just, they get in there and in the camp. And the camp on the St. John's property is gigantic. James has probably been in there and seen
It's
it.
the worst.
Yeah.
It's huge, and it's the worst, and it's messy, and it stinks, and it's horrible.
And it's almost like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie with the way it looks back in there.
I don't see Carol having the ability to deal with it. She can barely get around for right now.
No, but I think one step she could do is if she does go to the sheriff's department and sign the citation letter, like they will cite people if they don't do that.
Oh, I thought it was in there. Isn't there a no trespassing sign right?
There isn't no trespassing.
No trespassing, but unless you go to the sheriff's department and sign the citation letter that gives them the proof of permission.
I'll talk to her about it. I know Carol well. I'll talk to her. I thought that she'd done that because I saw
if she needs one, I'll go to the sheriff. I'll go and talk to Margaret and get the form, and you can take it to her.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. But I thought it was done because I saw the no trespassing. The no trespassing sign is relatively new.
Right, it is pretty
So I thought that she'd done that. But
I'm going to guess somebody from the neighborhood probably put that up.
That's what
Oh,
I guess.
okay. Well, okay, so I definitely will talk to her about it. Doesn't, and that would be helpful, but, so here was my thought as we were talking about this. John Shelter pops into mind, and I don't know, he's wanted us to use him, and there's been, different things about whether we can or we can't. But I was thinking about dollars and cents, that maybe they would be more cost effective on a regular basis to deal with that. I don't know. Now, the other thing I was thinking is, wouldn't it be more dollars and cents to us to have one of our employees go over there every 3 days, just go direct through every 3 days and just stay ahead of that, just to get the hell out?
So how long does it take you through the property, James?
It takes about, if you take both parcels and go from the Magnolia, which is Fort Central, all the way to Merton Hill Avenue behind the high school, you do a good job and you hit all of the trails, it's going to take you 45 minutes to an hour to hit them all.
Okay.
If you hit just the main beams, it could be done quicker, but they hide. They get in and hide, just like today.
No, okay.
We cleaned the one, and as we're cleaning up one, the guys came back, and somebody was in the back of our truck trying to take stuff out.
No, I understand.
And
I
so
understand, but I'm
we
just saying.
followed them.
It always costs, getting a program set up and in place always takes a little more time, and then it gets easier and easier and easier. But I just say put a pencil to it and see that if we're spending X amount every 3 months or 4 months, whatever, that maybe we could save a lot of money by just doing that.
Right.
I don't know, it's just a thought.
Our open space zones are built on a schedule, so we get so much money from the open space zone, which allots labor, equipment, and so we break that up into a schedule for 12 months. So part of that monthly inspection comes out of that money fund. And so now that we're increasing it twice, that really affects the budget for that open space zone, and then going in there.
No, but you're right, Dennis. It might take us going in there once a week and spending an hour once a week and doing it to save us 9 or 10 man hours every.
And it could even get worse. I mean, it could just get more and more. And so I know we got a budget to work with, but if they keep on and exceed our budget, we still can't leave it laying there. We still have to clean up. I mean, I don't know why.
Yeah, but that's taking money out of the general fund.
I understand. So so my thought is that if we can spend them kind of on a regular basis, spend X, even if it costs us close, or even just a little bit less than the same amount, it's still more healthy. If you're picking up 60 damn needles and you're doing that over and over and over and over again, now that just makes the odds higher and higher and higher that somebody has a problem from.
Yeah, and like I said, today when we were cleaning up, we caught somebody in the back of the truck trying to take from us, and then followed them over and found another camp setting up behind the high school. And so we just, I said, you're out now, like there's no notification like that. Let's go start dragging everything. So So they got everything out of there today, so that was just stopping them because we only caught them, but they were in a good spot where you wouldn't even have seen them.
Right, and that's another thing too, some of these camps have to just get so overgrown and bad from the time that where you finally find them, because there's rabbit holes all through there for them to move into.
You know, if somebody found a spot and they wallered in and they made them a nice spot and they were in there and nobody saw them and they kept the place clean, you know,
And they weren't thieving from all the neighbors.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't think I think our whole attitude about this stuff would be way different, but there's probably very small minority of that crowd that actually cares about that.
We used to see that we used to see like the occasional clean camper, like, hey, you know, you move along, you know, thank you for, and they had their own garbage bags. The second one of us today had their own garbage bags. She started cleaning up. You don't see that anymore.
No.
Now it's 16 bicycles, you know, 5 bicycles, mountain bikes, cars.
Right.
They're stealing from people and bringing it all in there to go through and
all
take it
through
to the
the
garden. Like, it's all that. Anyway.
Well, I'm sorry you have to deal with that, but I think maybe.
Well, we just wanted to bring it to the board's attention because I know it's been on, it's a reoccurring theme on Facebook related to that specific piece of property. And so I just want.
Well, the community needs to know too. Somebody, it'd be great if somebody on Facebook would say something. The community needs to know that the McKinleyville Community Watch, they hear about them going out there and clean up. But it'd be nice for the community to know how much the services district puts into their
want
care
to
and consideration.
Give board member Burks, and then if we want, let's have a study session on it, but
Yeah.
I think
I think
rambling
we should probably
in an
have
unorganized
an agenda
fashion is
when we
not.
talk
Sorry,
Just unfortunately, 2 more pieces of bad news, but the McKinleyville Land Trust just did a big cleanup on a camp, same thing, huge pile of needles, pulling out everything from upholstered chairs to, you know. And then I've been getting reports that there's a very large site on our property where you come down from School Road. So we helped get some people out that were down by the storm drain pipe, but I think there's a large, what's been called like a dump site farther out along those trails. So I think, you know, I agree with staying on top of these, you know, this issue, but I also think that just moving people from one location to another, I mean, so they just cleaned out the land trust, those people are probably gonna walk down Ocean and go to the district property.
Actually, they'll probably cross the Hammond Trail and end up across the Hammond Trail from where they're at now.
Right,
Okay,
and
I'm gonna-
so real quick, I have a direction though, which is if staff hears of opportunities to, you know, enter a collaborative dialogue, I mean, this is a financial impact, and we're not the only ones that are feeling it. I know that solutions, you know, are varied and challenging, mental health, you know, drug use and all, but it's also housing and being proactive. So there are opportunities for staff to enter some of those dialogue spaces and hear what types of things are going on. I think if we can join an effort, a community effort, if there, you know, are things like that, I would be really interested for us to be at that table because it's impacting all
I think
of
this
us.
may be a study session if staff thinks it warrants it, and please schedule it if that's the case.
Yeah, or we can put it on the agenda and talk about it. Yeah, just some anecdotal, I know you want to move along. Chris, the Housing Authority and the Eureka Police Department did a cookout at the Mission last week or the week before that, and there was at Christie's Con, she said there were about 115 people that attended that, and only 4 people wanted applications for public housing in Section 8. So,
Okay,
most of the people aren't interested in housing.
Parks and Rec,
Nothing further to add.
General Manager.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
President's report, I'm going to set up a special board committee with David Couch, the general manager, and myself to review organizational possibilities and issues with the district. One of the things I'm looking at is whether we need to move to a district form of representation. It's a very timely and touchy issue. And and one thing, Leslie, that'd be very helpful is you were going to give us a map where the lower incomes were off the census, and that's pretty important for our work.
John, I didn't understand what you said. What is it that you're setting up a deal to do?
To look at organizational issues for the district.
Organizational what?
Having
Issues for the district, and it's going to primarily focus on districts.
districts for the directors, so we would have.
Districting instead
Oh,
of.
okay.
Districting as opposed to at large.
Okay, I couldn't understand what the heck you were talking about. Districting.
Yeah, districting, yeah.
Can't pronounce it. Thank you. Yes.
So for a little bit of background, there's been many lawsuits related to the Voting Rights Act, and most of them have related around minorities not being properly represented on boards, and in many districts and many cities have gotten sued and have had to spend the money to defend themselves legally, and then to create districts and change, instead of at large elections, have district elections.
Yeah, I went to that work breakout session on that, John. Now that I understand what you're saying, thank you.
Well, I want to be very careful. I said precisely how I want it reflected in the minutes. I'm not trying to invite the issue. I'm trying to study the issue and do it with phrases that are open up the possibility of considering it.
Yeah, no, I just couldn't understand how the words were going together. It was me. I wasn't tracking what you were saying.
The second is I want our Barsante, board member Barsante, to come back to the board in 60 to 90 days with a business-oriented report on the status of our actions regarding Parks and Rec. Should go over the history, how much we're losing the last, whether it's accelerating or not, what steps have we taken, what's worked or not, and coming up with a timeline to make a plan to resolve the issue. And of course, she'd be working with the general manager and Colleen and Leslie on that. Okay, board member comments, announcements, reports, agenda items, requests.
Only thing I've got to say is thankfully the governor vetoed SB1, and so that's good for water, and so that was the voluntary agreement issue in all the Delta stuff is a huge deal that SB1 didn't take into account at all. There's probably reasons that people would support it. The governor saw that it was just going to create too much of a nightmare on some settlement agreements, during that. So anyway, just wanted to mention that.
Okay, any other board member comments, announcements? Okay, we're adjourned.